Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about what's happening with Black speech, as there's going to be a new Oxford dictionary for Black euphemism. And the question I'm having is this really good for the culture? We'll have that conversation. Also, let's talk a little bit about reparations, as now there's a new bill that passed in the state of New York where they say that they are going to establish a commission to possibly explore the ideas of reparations for New York. Wow. The later we check in with one attorney who defended college students at Freaknik. Yep, folks, he's got the real story. Stay with us. All of that is happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, happy Friday. Man, oh man, it took us all week to get here. But I appreciate y'all for checking in and being a part of the discussions that we got lined up for you today. All right, let's jump right into it. The first conversation is talking about a new Oxford dictionary that will showcase Black speech and Black euphemisms. The question becomes, is this going to be good for the culture? Now, one of the key editors and behind this major project is researcher, scholar, and professor, Brother Henry Louis Gates Jr. And there is a lot of conversation about what this dictionary will entail, especially with which words from Black language will be included. And trust me, folks, there are going to be a lot of different words. Joining me on this conversation is a culture crew member. He is a DEI specialist. That means diversity, equity, inclusion. And he's just a brother who's been on the front lines and continues to push something good for the culture. My brother Shanedu Wakwa Ford. Brother Shanedu, good afternoon, sir. How you feeling, bro?
We took all week to get here, like you said.
It took all week to get here, Shanedu. It took all week to get here. All right, let's talk about this. Let me just share with you the word that's coming across the wire from various media sources. This one comes from NBC News, where they're talking about that. Take a look at this, folks. I didn't write this. I think this is funny. I had to bring this one up. Post this quote, Keenan. This is from NBC News. Precise definitions for bussin', chitterlings, and cakewalk will be distributed to the world in 2025 with a new dictionary issued by Oxford University Press. Last year, Oxford University Press revealed its plans to publish the Oxford Dictionary of African American English in entirely unequaled lists. During a recent online presentation, those tied to the publication revealed that they already selected 100 words to include in its dictionary and has its eyes set on publication in March 2025, according to the New York Times. Everybody has an urgent need for self-expression, said Henry Louis Gates, explained in his interview of the importance of inclusivity and word representation in dictionaries. He said, you need to be able to communicate what you feel and what you think to other people in your speech community. That is why we refashioned the English language. That's what Brother Henry Louis Gates puts out. You got to refashion the English language. Here's my question, Shanedu. I don't have a problem with Oxford Dictionary deciding to do this, but come on. You know what I'm about to say. Like, should some words from our vernacular, from our speech, should that really be included in a dictionary that is going to be distributed worldwide? Do we want everyone to say that's busted?
Here's my only way I would agree with this. If it is now okay to add AAVE into the Oxford Dictionary, which is the dictionary of dictionaries, then that should also mean that the culture that comes with that language should now be accepted for job interviews and job speak. If you think that our language that was once diminished, that was once used to say that we were uneducated. If you're now putting it in the dictionary represented by one of the greatest institutions in the world, then there has to be a cultural change under the guise as it pertains to what is professional or not. Because you can't take our words and put it in the dictionary because you want to use it. But then when we use that vernacular, we are told that we are ghetto, uneducated, so on and so forth. Two things can't be true at the same time in this point. So I need to know about those ramifications. Once we have those discussions, then we can talk. I have a second point. My second point is, hell no, it shouldn't be in that damn dictionary. And it's simply because it's ours. And it's yet again, white folks wanting to take our rhythm and not our blues. This is what we use. This is ours. This is our thing. If we use it within our own lexicon and in our own anthologies, that's fine. Being as dope if it's from a book that we prescribe and subscribe to. But to now integrate, last time we integrated with y'all, it didn't go quite that well as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know how I feel about that.
It's a very interesting place to be, right? And that's how I felt, because when I heard about this and I looked into it, I was like, like, and now it's becoming across like, and tell me if y'all feel this, crew and Brother Sinead, is this glorifying speech that, as you said, I think you make an excellent point, that it's not commonly accepted and it's not being seen as traditional speech? Is it glorifying that language? Does it make fun of the words that we have created in our vernacular? Like it feels interesting. It feels like yes, I don't mind our expressions to be seen and heard and used, right? Because that's the impact that we have made. And to Brother Henry Louis Gates's point, but at the same time, some of these words, I mean, I don't even know. I don't think that Black folks really like completely embrace. And if that's the case, do you teach this to the next generation? Do you pull out you imagine being a teacher, Sinead, and you pull out this Oxford Dictionary of African American language term speech, and you're just like, okay, class, this thing is busting. I mean, are we teaching? It's one thing for children to use that, but in the formal language, are we putting out? Is this of setting us back? That's the part about this, bro. I can't. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around this. And so let me go to Crew before we take our first pause on this. Crew, just let me know your thoughts on this as we talk about this new Oxford Dictionary. So many of you are already checking and saying, hell to the no. Shalinda, you said, I mean, first the Ebonics book, now this. Right, Shalinda. Right, now this. And this is, like I said, this is from Oxford University Press. So this is not like some mom and pop shop of places. This is a legitimate situation going on. Thank you, Shalinda, for kicking us off this afternoon. Tiana, you said, we don't need the whites knowing our language. Well, they already know our language. They already know that. But it's not that we don't need the whites to know our language, because every group of people have their own language. White people, Black people, Latino, Native Americans. It's just a simple fact that our language is really fascinating to people outside of the culture, to people outside of our group of people. So, you know what I'm saying? It's that part. Willie, Tiana, thank you so much. Willie, my guy, you said this isn't what we meant for diversity and inclusion. I'm going to go back to you on this one, Sinead. I think Willie brings up an excellent point. Is this a form of diversity and inclusion that we should be advocating for?
It is not. And it's very simple. Inclusion means don't exclude me. Inclusion is for me to have the right to be myself within the midst. It doesn't mean that you have to be me or I have to be you. And I think people get that confused. And I do want to make a point also that when I think about this, it reminds me of that old movie Airplane from 1980, where that white lady on the plane was like, I speak jive. And it's like, it's almost, when somebody outside of the culture does this, it is almost disrespectful and a mockery. It is the one thing that I think whiteness has not gotten in 2023 and any year before that. There are certain things that just don't belong to you, that you don't get to share. And that is okay.
But we do need do we need to have some updated conversations about language, expression, speech from Black Americans? I don't know if it, because see, then the other part of it is that if this is supposed to be about diversity, equity, inclusion, should we get an Oxford Dictionary for Latinos? Should we get an Oxford Dictionary for Asian Americans? Should we, like how do we not make sure that Black folks are put out there in such a way where we're used to make mockery of, versus us being part of a coalition of people that represent this country?
What did Will Smith and Ashley Banks say in that one episode of French Prince of Bel-Air? Mind your business. What? That's all. Just mind your business. If you look at AAVE and African American Ebonics, if you go back to the motherland, the continent, there is something that we call broken. We call that in Nigeria, but it's a slang that is speaking all throughout Africa. It's very similar to what we do here. You know how if you're down south Black folk got their way of talking. Northeast folk got their own Black way of talking, but we can communicate with each other, even though we're speaking two different forms of a quote unquote broken language. This has been done all throughout the world, but ain't nobody going to Africa trying to figure out how do we translate. Like, accept it as is, let it be what it is, because the next question then becomes, now you learn this vernacular, how do we know that you won't use that against us? We see this with the RICO charges, with them trying to figure out what our music means and with how we express. Anybody else, a country person can sing about drinking whiskey and killing his wife, and y'all call it art. But then y'all hear somebody, a young thug, a young this, a young that, singing about the same thing, and it's RICO charges. So it's like, I believe that this is yet another, in my opinion, this will be yet another tool to subjugate Black and brown folks.
Absolutely. This is big. This is big. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let me get more of your thoughts on this, crew, as y'all are checking in on our YouTube page under Roland Martin, as we're streaming live right there. What's your take on Oxford Dictionary, Oxford University Press, creating a dictionary for Black speech that actually includes a slang that Black folks, the vernacular, the language, the linguistics that we often use in a dictionary format where the rest of the world can see what we're talking about? What's your take on that? Is it good for the culture? That's the big question. Join us in the discussion as you see us on our chat on YouTube, and continue to tune in to blackstarnetwork.com and of course on Amazon News. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about this, and of course with you. Stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now
We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture. We've been talking about Oxford University Press has officially announced that they have started working on a new project, creating an Oxford dictionary for Black speech. That's going to be a project that's going to be headed up by Henry Louis Gates, the researcher, scholar, professor, to include terms that Black folks often use in our daily interactions with one another and with other folks. Now, been checking in with my brother Shanita Wakwafor, diversity, equity, inclusion specialist, and of course with you to get your take on this, folks. Let me just share with you, and brother Shanita, I want to bring you back into the frame. There are already 10 words that they have already decided to move forward on and including in this dictionary. Now, the first one is bussin'. Everybody, if you don't know what the word bussin' means, folks, you're not Black. No, let me tell you. Let me tell you, I found out from Bustle Nera told me when she was in school working with elementary school students. It's like elementary, middle school age students started using the term busting. Then I heard Black grown folks talking about, man, this place is busting. So I was just like, what the hell is that? Even I didn't know the words. And I'm in communications, bro. I'm in communications. All right, so here's the thing. There are 10 terms, folks, that it's going to be included. They're going to be 10 terms with definitions and etymologies in this new dictionary. Let me share with one. We already said bussin'. The second term, folks, is grill. Grill, like the grills you put on your teeth. Grill. Yeah, according to that, a removable or permanent dental overlay, typically made of silver, gold, or another metal. And often... I'm not making this up. And often, this is a kicker. A grill often inset with gemstones, which is worn as jewelry. I need to take some coffee on that one, bro.
They're taking the fun out of it.
And I mean, grill. The other one, promised land. A place perceived to be where enslaved people and later African Americans more generally can find refuge and live in freedom. Really? Wow. Promised land. Chitterlings. I think everybody know what chitterlings is. Chitlins, and depending on what part of the country you're from, chitterlings is going to be a part of it. Kitchen. This is a new one. The hair, the nape of the neck, which is typically shorter, kinkier, and considered more difficult to style. The kitchen. The other one, cakewalk. A contest in which Black people would perform in a stylized walk in pairs, typically judged by a plantation owner. The winner would receive some type of cake. Something that is considered easily done, as is this job is a cakewalk. They even got the term old school that's going to be included. I think everybody knows what old school means. They also got another term, I've never heard this one used, ring shout. A spiritual ritual involving a dance where participants follow one another in a ring shape, shuffling, clapping their hands to accompany chanting and singing. The dancing and chanting gradually intensify and often conclude with participants exhibiting a state of spiritual ecstasy. Sinead, what do we make of this, bro? Because I'm trying to understand. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to see how this doesn't play into some level of insult. or put us on another, again, put the spotlight on us and our culture to the point where people are like, yeah, I'm gonna do a cakewalk. Oh, hey, I guess I guess you think this situation is bussing. Like,
I feel like this is their what's the word I'm looking for? This is their gluten-free way of trying to be a part of the culture, and I'm not for it. Because if you think about the word y'all, if you now have to define the word y'all by saying you all, you've taken the fun out of the slang.
Right.
And I think that is what's happening here. These are all slang terms. These are all form of community engagement. And more importantly, these words are peculiar to a person's or a people that share the same situation. What I am now starting to see is just that line being crossed. Like when you look in hip hop and you see certain white people wanting to sing about the struggle or rap about, and it's like, yeah, anybody can do it, but this is for us. This is the language and the culture that we've created from oppressive situations, including learning English in the first place. Let's really talk about that, because at one point in time, you all ridiculed us based on how we talked because we could not pick up a foreign language because we were enslaved and brought here. But now it's because Black culture is so good and it's so quantifiable that now everybody wants a piece. And that is my issue with the integration of our cultures into American society. At a certain point, it becomes a co-opting. We've seen that with the word woke, which was a message of charge, of awareness. Look how that whole word has been co-opted.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you're making, Sinead, that we do have to be careful about how we want our culture to be embraced by other people and how we want our culture to be put on Front Street by other people. Very quickly before we take our next pause, Sharon Gregory, you said, who the hell approved these damn words? Man, I don't know. Willie, you said this is the main reason why, to me, America's leading export is Black culture. Second is things made with Black labor. It's so much, man. This is so much that it's really unfortunate that as a people, we still have to fight against and fight for some level. Well, I'm trying to think of the proper word. I mean, no pun intended, Brother Sinead, but I'm trying to think of the proper word. Like, we're trying to fight for what here? What is this that we're trying to hold on? It is certainly our culture. It's certainly our language. But I'm just thinking about the constant barrage on our identity. I mean, every part of our humanity is often questioned, is often scrutinized. Is every part of our humanity is often either recognized as bits and pieces. Okay, we like this part of Black culture. We can hold back on that part of Black culture. I mean, it's getting to be so bad now. From the words that we use, to the way that we dress, to how we style ourselves, to the places we go. And you know, people will say, well, you know, Black folks, we jump to conclusions, but I don't see this level of scrutiny, and I'm talking about this level of scrutiny. I don't see this level of scrutiny for other people in this country, for Asian Americans, for Latinos. This seems to be very targeted on us. And I'm saying not just about this dictionary, I'm talking about in general, the level of all of this stuff that we're experiencing. This is a high level of scrutiny, bro. A high level of scrutiny. Any take on that, bro? Sinead, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I had to unmute. I mean,
okay,
brother, listen, I don't want to belabor a good point. This is strange. But this is also not new. And that's what makes this even more interesting. It's always, and this is our truth, right? And one of my favorite books, The Secret Life Between Black and Jews, there's a line in that book, and it's a quote from a German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, and it says, truth goes into 3 stages. First, it's vehemently denied. Then it's researched. Then it's finally proven to be self-evident. And that's what we see here. What is happening now, it has always been our truth, but it was a truth that people denied for years and ridiculed for years. But now all of a sudden people want to research this. You'll see a class in Harvard about Black education or Black speak one day, because now it's being proven to be self-evident. And there's danger in that. And I'll keep saying that. I'm 100% not with this. Even though they may have a Black man who is doing the research, if we're going to add our thing to anything, let it be our own lexicon in our own anthology.
Absolutely.
We've created and what we've deemed, because it's not okay. If this is now the hip hop museum or something like that is now wanting to, then I'm fine for that. But entering this into the Oxford Dictionary, that don't sit well with me, especially because a lot of the wealth of Oxford came from, okay, let me not go there, but okay.
Come on, man. Come on. You got to keep it real. We got to keep it real. And I think this is why it's important for us to have this conversation. So we will see how this thing will move forward as Henry Louis Gates takes the helm, serving as one of the main editors for this project, what type of feedback he's going to get, and if it truly will come to publication in 2025. Shadeda, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, I want to give us the latest around this reparation movement happening here in the country, how the state of New York is now looking to create a commission to study the importance or study the need for reparations for New Yorkers. We'll break down for you what the latest bill that they approved just yesterday says and get your take on it. So stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Now, from talking about language to talking about history, we're going to give you an update on what's happening with the reparations movement here in America. And it seems like what has been happening here in the state of California has now caught some momentum to happen on the other side of the country in the state of New York. Yesterday, a major piece of legislation was just approved by New York legislatures, the state assembly there, and moving forward to creating a commission to study the conversation around a reparation, to examine whether New Yorkers deserve reparations. Here's the latest coming out of the Associated Press. Take a look at this, folks. This is what Assemblywoman Michelle Solange said about this whole process. He said, quote, "We want to make sure we are looking at slavery and its legacies. This is about beginning the process of healing our communities. There still is generational trauma that people are experiencing. This is just one step forward." The state assembly passed the bill about 3 hours after a spirited debate on Thursday. The state Senate passed the measure hours later, and the bill will be sent to New York Governor Kathy Hochul for consideration. The New York legislation will create a commission that would examine the extent to which the federal and state government supported the institution of slavery. It would also address persistent economic, political, and educational disparities experienced by Black people in the state today. Let me bring my brother Nadu into this discussion as we talk about reparations, a conversation we've been having on this show, brother Nadu, as you know. But now we're seeing some momentum. A lot of what we're seeing around this piece in New York with this bill came as a result of what was happening in the state of California in creating the reparations task force here. So now New York is looking at it. I remember having a conversation with Dr. Ray Winbush, who is one of the many scholars that have been a part of this reparations movement for 30 years. And he told me this about a year and a half ago, a little about over a year ago, that he said, Farajii, you know, we talked about Evanston. They have the reparations. We know California, of course. He said, but the next big place is going to be New York. This is the next place that they're looking at. So he told me this over a year ago. So now we're seeing this come into fruition with reparations for New Yorkers. What's your take on this, Brother Sneeder? Or can we expect this to be the trend for states across this country?
First of all, shout out to the great griot and OG Dr. Raymond Winbush.
Come on, man. You got to shout him out. Right.
Professor at the illustrious Morgan State University. Great man.
Right.
Here's my issue about this study. Who remembers 2020 Q1, COVID-19? Do y'all remember how many billions our government gave to an unproven vaccine? Where we paid first, hoped that what we were paying for worked, and then reaped benefits at the end. I say that to say, how much longer are we going to study this? How much longer are we going to study this? How many years did it take the Jewish community to get their reparations? How much did it take the Japanese to get their reparations? How much did it take for us to make amends with the Native Americans in some form? My question is, how come when it always comes to Black, it's like, we need to figure this out a little bit more? That is my main. I'm glad it's moving through New York, but I don't want another fucking study. We know, y'all know what y'all did. We know what y'all did. If you would like to know further of what y'all did, don't study anything. Step into any Black urbanized city in this country, and you will see the stain of your lack of respect and of your small man attitude. I'm trying to be as polite as I can. I just take so much issue with this discussion on reparations. Are we still studying? Then we're going to study it for 5 years. Then after we're studying, we're going to commission maybe an ethnographic study of that for another 5 years. Then after that, maybe we're going to publish a book. Y'all either going to pay or y'all not going to pay. Because I think at a certain point, it becomes disrespectful when someone tells you that we're still going to study if you're worth or your descendants are worth getting any reparations for us owning you, dehumanizing you, and selling you back and forth like you were a piece of meat at the grocery. At a certain point, it becomes disrespect, Farajii.
No, I get it. I'm right there with you with that same passion, bro. Same energy, same passion and energy. Like, look, you mean to tell me in modern day 2023 America, and I'm not just talking about black folks. I'm talking about white people. I'm talking about native. I'm talking about anybody. You mean to tell me that we can't make the connection that of black folks who were enslaved and the progress of this country today, there are some dots to be connected that a lot of what we're seeing today is because of the transatlantic slave trade. You mean to tell me that we got to study that? I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Look, McCole Lewis, you checked in. My sister, you said, agreed, brother. Talking to you, brother Sinedu. The studies are pointless. Absolutely. Sandra, thank you so much, McCole. Sandra, you checked in and said, a study is not needed. Slavery is a study. That's it. It's real simple. Go back, look through the history books and say, you know what? America is wrong for doing what she did. America is responsible for doing what she did. America needs to be held accountable for doing what she did. Right there, Sandra. My man JM, you said 100% talking about Brother Sinedu. Study, study, study. That's all they do. No action. Here we go. Sean, thank you for checking in. Sean Thomas, you say true speaking, my bro. Talking to you, Brother Sinedu. Right. Absolutely. Who else is checking in? Jacqueline Boateng, you said agree, Sinedu. Absolutely. Yep. Sandy, you brought this point up from James Baldwin, one of our great authors. You said James Baldwin asked, how long must we wait? That was over 50 years ago. He said that in an interview. We still here? That's the problem with a lot of these conversations. And look, I'm not mad that now you got folks. Here's the thing. It's going to be very, very pivotal that as much as we are all kind of frustrated, that we got to push this thing forward to create even greater momentum beyond the studies. If you're living in the state of New York right now, crew, if any one of you are living in the state of New York, you should raise your voice and be like, look, we don't need to study. Just open up the history books. That's all you need to do. We need to move forward on this because there needs to be some forward momentum. Because if California, one of the largest states in the country, New York, one of the most populous states in the country, now we got to look at some of these other states, right? You got to look at the size of Texas. You got to look at Florida. You got to look at all of these other things. But a lot of that can get caught up. The momentum can slow down if we are not on board. So I hope, because I know there are a lot of different sects and views of what reparations should look like, how it should be distributed and all of that. But I hope that a lot of the infighting within the reparations movement doesn't slow down the momentum of us trying to get some stuff done. Because if you got two of the most biggest and most populous states moving forward on this, it's only a matter of time before the federal government kicks in and say, okay, we need to do something bigger. We need to try to figure this out. But there needs to be some momentum around this, Representative, to your point.
Yeah, agreed. But hopefully, wrapping two things into one, hopefully they don't now try to use our last story and then learn our language and think that because they speak in the way we speak and now their vernacular is bussin', that maybe we'll take that and smile and just be happy with that. And I know it may sound far-fetched, but I put nothing past whiteness because it has been proven that what they will try to do is find any way to relate to those who they're dealing with, to find ways to minimize from them paying. Because then the issue with reparations is even after they study and come up with their solution, it's then who gets it. Then it's going to become a war. Who is black enough to get it? Do I get it because I am a first generation African in the Americas, even though I still suffered from the policies? Do I get as much as my friends?
That's a big conversation, bro.
It's going to cause crazy infighting because we already see the divide between blackness, whether you're African, whether you're Brazilian or in Portugal or here in the States. Who is the blackest? And with that infighting, it'll be like, well, we need to now do another study.
Right. And see, that's exactly what I'm speaking to, bro. That's exactly what I'm speaking to, that we don't get into a space where our infighting gets in the way of forward motion and progress. Quetus Bedhead, you checked in and said, are they going to give reparations to inmates or their families, which are mostly black? See, we got to think about it all. But see, here's what I'm thinking as we close out on this really quickly. The thing I think that is important for us to keep in mind is that for an issue like this, it needs to be discussed on a state level before it goes to a federal level. You're going to get much more buy-in if there is a consensus among state legislatures, and I'm talking about political strategy and political science here, folks. You're going to get more of a buy-in if you get state legislatures to sign on to this, to have this discussion, to discuss all this before it gets to the president's desk. We're going to cover a lot more ground on a state level, because the state is going to be the ones responsible for doling out the money, the resources, whatever the case may be. That's what the state is going to be responsible. The federal government is not going to send out a mandate to no state to say you're going to have to pay your constituents, you have to pay your citizens reparations, and this is how you're going to do it. They're going to, I bet you, they're going to leave it up to the states. So you got to have the conversation on a state level before you take it to a federal level. And I'm happy that that's what's happening. I just don't want that infighting to be a barrier for what we already know is right, is necessary. That's what it is. Now, we can keep the infighting to ourselves and not take it into the public space so much that it becomes this other thing. Then I think we're in forward motion. But look, here's the thing really quickly, Sinead. I remember having a conversation about reparations 10 years ago. So we actually are moving forward, because this is now a part of the mainstream discussion about what do you do in terms of the race question. This is the mainstream discussion. So it's at least we're at this point, because when John Conyers introduced that bill, what has it been, almost 40 years now, bro? He ain't getting no support. He was out there as a solo artist, brother. He was out there by himself. So he didn't get no support. So it is important that we keep that in mind. Look, brother Sinead, I know our time has certainly been well spent, and I appreciate your insight, bro. And I thank you so much for checking in with us this afternoon. It's always good to talk to you, man. And I just love and appreciate you, man. God willing, man, we'll be reconnecting with you sometime next week. All right?
Inshallah. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take another pause when we come forward. More of the culture. And I appreciate all of y'all for checking in, man. Very quickly, Jacqueline, you said you agree with my point on that. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And Sean, you said, in my opinion, Juneteenth proved we are owed. Absolutely. Folks, stay tuned. More conversation, more of the culture coming up next on the other side, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, it is Monday, and as we have been doing every Monday, is as much as we talk about the political and social things, we got to talk about health and wellness. And so let's get another installment of today's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. All right, Dr. Bridget, good afternoon. How are you, sis?
Great. How are you today, Farajii?
I am all right. Let's talk a little bit about something that I think a lot of parents and school folks, and now a lot of states have actually been talking about. I said that we're trying to shift gears from the politics of health and wellness, but this is actually a political conversation just as much as it's a health and wellness conversation.
Yeah.
Where we're seeing states doing some stuff with social media.
Yeah, we're getting to that point where something that should be about families and mental health has really now become a political issue. And so keeping in mind, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're getting more than halfway through, getting near the end of the month. And so it's really important that we spend a little bit more time in this area. I know that we've covered a little bit of this before, but I really am asking the viewers to checking in on themselves as well as their kids, thinking about how are their grandparents, how are their good friends, people forget about their cousins, really doing some checking in around mental health because we don't spend enough time in this area. You know, when we think about just wellness, we think of every other aspect of our body, but we don't necessarily spend enough time thinking about this. And it's becoming more of an issue because of social media and the smartphones that kids carry. So what I really want to talk about today is how the government is now getting involved in what you are able to view on your phone as far as TikTok and social media today.
Yeah, so this is interesting because this is coming out of a conversation where we're seeing states starting to ban the use of TikTok. And I'm talking about the actual app, folks. They're not allowing TikTok to be used in the state. This is very, very interesting and a little scary in a sense, right? Because it's like 1984, Big Brother is watching type of thing. But I can understand why some states are having some concerns because we're seeing that on these social media platforms, there are different contests, there are different things. Young children particularly are being exposed to adult content in a very, very unhealthy way. And this comes out of what we're seeing. Montana, the first state to completely ban TikTok. Now, some people might say Montana. I mean, who, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a smaller state. But I think the big thing is, can this be enforceable given the fact that this is social media? Like what are you going to do? Are you going to, how do you put a ban on something like this? Does that mean that it's not allowed to be downloaded in the phones? I mean, it gets into a lot of the weeds of this stuff.
Yes.
But Montana, what do you think was going through the minds of legislators in Montana when they looked at this whole thing?
Absolutely. So Montana decided that not only where some states are looking at certain age groups, right? As far as there's a bipartisan bill where it is the Protecting Kids on Social Media Act, where the youngest people are banned, younger than 13, and then between ages 13 to 17, you would need parental consent. A lot of this still goes back to TikTok specifically, but Montana said no one can be on TikTok. This is something they were looking to do to start in January 2024. And they've already gotten pushback, of course, as we know. And as you said, is this even enforceable? What they're looking at is 3 reasons why they're doing it. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you ban TikTok, what are we talking about? We're talking about reels, right? These quick 30-second, minute or so, quick information that is just almost addictive to our brains. But the fact of the matter is, you get rid of TikTok, you still got Instagram, you still got Facebook, it's still out there. What they're trying to prevent, though, is companies that are collecting data on you and your kids. So a lot of this is focused on kids, but this is for the adults as well. So don't leave yourself out of the equation during this conversation, because not only are your kids addicted, but you are too. And so it's important that we set an example and see how can we fix the problem. Another thing is, like you said, protecting our kids regarding the information online that they're being subjected to, sometimes being groomed or sexual trafficking, being exposed to adult content, whether that is pornography or just information and that is just not age appropriate. And so definitely, even though we can put some restrictions on the parental side, kids very quickly figure out how to get around that. I had this conversation with my own teenagers about them banning TikTok. And my now 18-year-old very quickly said, oh, we can get around that easily. Like, she didn't even flinch. She didn't even care, because she knew that there was an easy way to get around it. And it's already been discussed in their friend groups.
So that right there, Doc, that right there opens up like Pandora's box for me. It's like, first and foremost, and I've had this conversation with a number of people that feel like social media, as much as it is supposed to be fun and bring people together, is so necessary to be a part of our lives that even if we try to put some restrictions or some boundaries on it, that people are like, no, we got to find a way. And that right there, that reeks of addictive.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you're telling your child, or you're telling the addict, like, no, you can't have this anymore. They're like, oh, you want to try to do it? Oh, I got a better way. And it's like, now you're crossing into a different space. That's what it sells. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, absolutely. The fact of the matter is, I'm not saying that you won't have access to Google or other aspects of our computer and the internet. And we're talking specifically about social media, and a lot of this looks at TikTok specifically. You can survive without social media. Okay. And
wait a minute, hold on, Doc. Hold on. I gotta make, because I think the world has just shook right there when you said that. Hold on. I'm trying to fix my equipment here. Can you say that one more time?
You can absolutely survive without social media. Wow. And honestly, today, I definitely want to spend some time talking about solutions to this, not just the problem. Because you're living under a rock if you don't know social media isn't an issue, or that it's not addictive, or it's not good for your kids' brains, right? But the question, I think, is What do we do about it? And I think that's where we all really get stuck. There was a review in the Journal of American Medical Association found, we're talking about what does this do to kids, right? Why is this a big deal? There was an increase in pediatric mortality in 2020 and 2021, rising 11% and 8% in those years following amongst teenagers. This is not due to any other reason. It was suicide, it was homicide, and drug-related deaths. A lot of this has to do with deaths of despair, okay? Children feel so hopeless that they turn to drugs and suicide. This is not a white problem. This is not a Black problem. This is a young person problem. This is being exposed to information that they cannot handle. It's being exposed to cyberbullying and afraid to share that information. And so we really need to take this seriously. And the fact of the matter is, I keep wanting to bring this back. Yes, this is a teenage problem, but we also, as adults, we call it cyberbullying with teenagers. We call it trolling when it comes to adults, right? And if you don't think that adults don't get highly affected and have depression and have issues with this, then you're really missing the significance and the how strong that social media actually is. So I want to make sure we don't leave ourselves out of this conversation.
No, that is, I like how you put that. We call it cyberbullying as teenagers, trolling as adults.
Yeah.
So, and I think that to some degree, as adults, depending on who the adult is, you know, you either kind of feed off of that energy, or you are, as you mentioned, your view of yourself takes a hit. But the cyberbullying for a child, they're not emotionally, mentally developed to make those decisions. So you're like, oh, they're just goofing off. They take that stuff to heart.
Yes. Absolutely.
And that whole thing about death of despair.
Yes. And it's a horrible situation. I think one big difference for adults versus our teenagers or young people is that many times if we have someone trolling us, it's rarely someone that we really know personally, though I've had that happen as well, right? But we know that we can come back at that on some level. The problem is that if your child blocks the person that is bullying them, they still end up going to school the next day. And if they're not seeing that bully, everyone is telling them what they are not seeing on social media. And the problem just continues to perpetuate itself, where adults many times can find ways to shut it down. And so it's really important that we take a closer look at this. Even with this overuse of cell phones and social media, there was a book out not that long ago by Jean Twenge that talks about the fact that our kids' brains are developing very differently, that a 12th grader now is about emotionally developed as an 8th grader in previous generations.
Damn. Whoa.
Right?
Whoa.
Think about that. And I'll be honest, when I was reading this, I kind of looked at my own kids and was thinking, gee, when, you know, I have a 18-year-old, and when I was her age and, you know, through high school, I was much more social. And no, she's social, she's active, she's, you know, a great kid, but I was much more out there in the world, probably getting in more trouble, where she could sit on her bed and just have like a group chat thing with a bunch of friends on a Friday night and think that, you know, she was living her best life. And no, they lived through COVID during those teenage years, so it's a little bit different. But at the same time, if you look at how a 12th grader now behaves versus how you behaved in 12th grade, they're not emotionally developed the same way that we were, that they're dealing with more, they're less likely to go out. They're less likely to go sometimes to social functions because they're more shy or don't know how to interact. They're getting into less alcohol, to be honest with you, because they are more engaged in this addiction than other addictions that may occur.
Social fitness and wellness. You checked in and said addiction. Absolutely. These kids are physically attacking teachers for taking phones during the class.
Yes, absolutely. So there was and so the question is, should the phone be not only in the kid's bedroom, should the phones even be in the school? And there is police in Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. There was an investigation over a fight over a cell phone between a substitute teacher. Also in Tennessee, high school teacher was pepper sprayed twice by a student who became irate that her phone was being taken away.
I saw the video for that. Doc. And I mean, all he was trying to do was take the cell phone.
Yeah.
And she went off. But I did read, and I'm just please correct me, that there's some dopamine levels that like what we're taking in affects the serotonin and the dopamine in our brain. So like we get excited when we get a notification versus when we don't. Like, can you explain that before we take our next pause?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, just as you're explaining that the same hormonal experience that you have with other addictions, whether it's opioids or gambling or shopping or whatever it may be, it's a surge of excitement in your brain, as you said, with dopamine, right? And so every time you get a like or some sort of response on social media, it urges you to come back in and get another one. It urges your brain to give you a certain level of joy and satisfaction that you keep getting more and more drawn into this, which keeps kids up half the night trying to get more and more of this interaction on these apps. And the fact of the matter is that we need to control the access in a very meaningful way and find other things for our kids to get involved in, which we can talk about when we come back.
We got to talk about it. Doc is always on it. Folks, we got to stay right there with us. We're going to continue the conversation with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. I want to hear from you, crew. What's your take on what Dr. Bridget is laying out? What's he putting down in terms of social media, parenting, and having this access? And this whole idea, should we start to have a conversation about banning certain platforms? Or is it just a simple thing of putting some time restrictions on whether your child, engages on a platform? What's your take about children, parenting, and social media? Stay with us. More conversation. Your thoughts up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Bridget, MD, our resident family physician here on The Culture, to talk to us about a host of things for this, for her Reclaim Your Wellness segment. And this week, she's talking about parenting, social media, and the politics of it all. And Dr. Bridget is putting out some jewels, folks, some diamonds for us to consider as we are having this very, very big, and I would say this is an ongoing conversation. I don't know how many households. I know it's a big thing in my household. I mean, the iPad, the use of access to getting on YouTube and TikTok and other social media. I think this is like, if this is not one of the top 3 things that parents have to deal with, of course, the top one is safety and security. But then once you know in the house, it's like, all right, so what you doing while you're in the house? You know what I mean? Like social media, your children have access to these type of platforms, to these apps. That is another major concern. I want to get some folks from some of the some thoughts from our crew as they share their take on this, Dr. Bridget. First and foremost, McCole checked in and said, I believe that it is the parents, caregivers' responsibility to monitor their children online and offline. Online and offline. So, McCole, you're saying it's the parents' responsibility, which I truly agree with. I think that as a parent, especially if you have younger children, but once you get into the teenage years, you have to build some level of trust with your child to be able to have those conversations with them. It's not going to be easy. Every child you can't have a cookie cutter conversation. You got to figure out what's the best way to build that level of trust, to build the relationship around social media. So, Dr. Bridget, when Nicole said, I believe it is the parents' caregivers' responsibility to monitor their children online and offline, what does that look like? Does that look like putting some boundaries on the time that they're on social media? Or does that look like, all right, you're on TikTok, you're going to see some wild stuff, having a conversation about the quality of the content? What does monitoring look like?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, keep in mind, there was a recent survey that came out. 46% of American teens say that they are online almost constantly. That's half of teenagers. Almost constantly. And 35%, 46% said constantly, and 35% said almost constantly. And so keep in mind that your kid is on there all the time. Where are you? Right? And that means that even when they're at home at night, even when you're all together, they're still on there all the time. That's half of teenagers. So monitoring goes beyond just taking the phone away. It goes really like, get in there, have the conversations. What are you looking at? If you are all sitting on the couch on your phones and you know that's what's happening, what are you looking at? Let me tell you what I'm looking at. I will tell you one thing I do with my kids, that when I am on social media and I find something interesting, I share it with them. If I think it's interesting, if I think they could benefit from it, if I think it's funny, there's one thing to make it a negative. It's another thing to make it something that can bring you together.
Great point.
Conversation is really, really important. So let me throw out some ideas to you. And keep in mind, I want to make people realize that we're not just talking about being on the computer or social media. We're talking about children and anxiety. Okay. We're talking about what this does to them. We talked about the addiction and the dopamine, but we also need to be aware that the anxiety and the depression that it might cause. There's a new documentary that's out called Anxious Nation. Okay. And it says that 29% anxiety is increased by 29% in the recent years. And so kids, like almost a third of kids, are more anxious than we've ever seen before. And so if you're dealing with this, if you want to dig deeper, definitely look up anxiousnation.com. They have 2 contributors that will be significant. Kenya Hamed, who is a neuropsychologist that is going to have input on there. And Tim Story is a pastor, author, and speaker, and he also talks about this as well. So definitely look that up. It's something that's just came out, and I think it's worthwhile for people that have kids. And sometimes you don't recognize anxiety right off the bat. You sometimes see combativeness or withdrawal, and many times it can be anxiety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me get back to what the crew is saying, and I'm glad that you brought up this point. Tiana checked in and said, this is why we need to log off and take a break from social media. We need to normalize taking a break.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there used to be something called screen time off. It was an organization that they would have a week where they would celebrate getting rid of not just your phone, but television, all screen time. And they would provide activities and things all around the country, things that you could go to really kind of get away from it, take a week off from the screen, and giving parents ideas of what to do with their children of all ages. It was a nonprofit that eventually, I believe, might have lost some of their funding, but it's something that you can still do at home in some ways as well. And so the first thing I would say is, as you started to mention here, set your own house rules. Why does the government have to decide what's going on in your house?
Right.
Set your own house rules. Don't let the phone be the babysitter. And then even create some sort of reward system for the amount of time that they're able to get away. Because keep in mind, if there's addiction, if they're that set, then, and you do have those dopamine surges, you're going to have to slowly pull them away from it and maybe provide a different type of reward as they get further and further away.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Cheese toast. I'm sorry, not cheese toast. I see that you posted, but also Lori Parks, you said, I see little babies 2 and over every single day using a cell phone, holding them in their little hands. And when you take it away, they throw a fit. Cell phones, which has become the new babysitters.
Yes.
I see it in the grocery stores. I see it in the cars. I see it. I mean, I understand it, right? But what does that do for a baby, for a child of that age, 2, 3, 4 years old, when they get connected to the electronic device?
So it literally rewires their brain in a different way, that they need immediate satisfaction, immediate rewards. And so that temper tantrum that you see in the 3-year-old is the same temper tantrum that you're seeing in these high school students with the fight and the pepper spray, because they're developing an addiction to this quick information that is satisfying and stimulating to them, right? And so even though in the beginning, you know, it is an easy babysitter, but we've got to get engaged again. And guess what? It's also an easy babysitter for the adults as well. You know, kids used to suck their thumb. This is sucking your thumb, but it's a screen instead.
Absolutely. Karen, my sister Karen Connor checked in and said, it is frightening electronic devices have replaced human relationships. Mm-hmm. It is the parents' responsibility to set expectations and limitations and practice those expectations, set time limits. Yep. How do we get back to a place of teaching children the value of human relationships, the importance of those things? I mean, because I spent a lot of time with my children, Doc, and we go to places, we go to the beach, we go all types of places. But it's like when they come home, y'all gonna probably be mad at me when I say this, but if you spend a lot of time with your children, an hour on the thing, on the device, you just like take it. You know what I'm saying?
The key thing is that you already spent a lot of time with them. We're not saying that this is the end all be all and it's the worst evil and what have you. You know, you could watch TV together as well, and then you're getting complete transparency about what they're seeing, right? And that's the way, you know, we talked about that before. Now we've created something much more sinister, because you can't see what they're seeing, and if you do see it, they can switch the screen like that. Right. So one recommendation besides being knowledgeable and setting privacy or what have you, wean them down to one platform. Why do they have to have Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat? And they're ones I'm sure I'm not even completely
YouTube is a huge one.
YouTube is huge, right? And a lot of people get their music from that as well. So why do they have to have so many options? I know my daughter has some that I had never even heard of that she is engaged in as well. And keep in mind, many kids will have more than one account. So just when you think you got smart enough to control the one account, many times they're just opening up another one. Okay.
See, when it gets to that point, Doc, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, first, I think you're talking about like the teenagers, your teenagers. You know what I'm saying? Because my 9-year-old, my 3-year-old, they're not setting up accounts. And I already had a conversation with my son, and saying, son, you don't need to, because he looks at it, he's starting to become more aware of these things, but he's like, Dad, I don't think I need to be on social media. He likes learning stuff. So when he goes on YouTube, he finds the science and engineering stuff and how to build stuff and Lego masters and stuff. But there has to be some conversations. But when you start to create like ghost accounts and all of this stuff, it gets to be like way too far gone. And I think that there needs to be some level of intervention that has to happen between you and your teenager or your niece, your nephew, your grandson or granddaughter about what's really going on. Now, I got to take another pause, but here's the other part about this. And if you could speak to it, because we've been talking about children, but the adults, we see more and more adults, especially right in your field, that will jump on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram to get medical and health information.
Yes. Let's talk about it. You want to talk about it now? I thought you said
I'm just kind of like marinating on the fact that I'm just seeing so much of that happening. And I'm like, yo, talk to your doctor. Like, don't go to some influencer to be like, yeah, this is how I learned about how to cure myself. Like, what the hell is going on? Folks, we're going to continue the conversation with Dr. Bridget and, of course, with you. Join us in the discussion. Post your comments on YouTube as we're streaming there now. And, of course, we're streaming on Black Star Network and Amazon News. And stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment, as we talked about everything from social media, the impact it has on children, and the impact that it has on adults when it comes to parenting and understanding things in the world. And this is truly fascinating. There's so many different components of this conversation, Dr. Bridget. Before I talk about the impact that it has on adults, we have one crew member, Nolan J7439, said, Dr. Bridget, can you speak a little on how adolescent brain development coupled with unsupervised internet use contributes to certain social dysfunctions? So we're talking about, like we talked about anxiety, but are there any other social dysfunctions? Do we start to see some level of schizophrenia, bipolar disease, other things like that may emerge because we find ourselves in this space?
So we're not saying that there's any direct relationship to social media and some of these like schizophrenia or bipolar or what have you. But what we are finding is that it can be the beginning of what may be more and more mental health issues. So as we said, that we start with something that like anxiety or depression, and then it can lead into much more complicated issues. So people become suicidal, they become avoidant, they do not develop as far as socialization skills to be able to interact with the rest of the world. And so people that maybe already have a predisposition for some of these conditions, many times it's a stressor that brings about the first bipolar episode or schizophrenic episode. And so in some ways, if this is that stressor, then you might see a correlation, but it is not the social media itself that causes it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So let me just say this, as we look at the impact of this on adults, Doc, that we just came out of COVID. Culture crew member Erica Beverett made this point that we came out of COVID, everything went online, whether it's our children's schooling, whether it's us doing work. Now we're in this digital space. Now that genie has been out of the bottle. And now folks are saying, hey, it's not good to spend a lot of time online. And you're like, but the whole world has told us to go online. Now we're supposed to just jump back out into the real world. How is that? How can you reconcile those two realities? And Erica also said, as we talk about folks going to social media to get some form of guidance about health and wellness, she said a lot of folks can't afford doctor visits, so we may lean on some social media understanding. We have been told that social media is the place to go. This is our new reality. And now it's like, nope, that's not the new reality. That was only a new reality for 2 years. But now it's time for you guys to get back out into the real world. How do we handle that?
The fact of the matter is that we've talked before about Black people in particular do better when they have physicians that look like them, that understand them, that can relate to them, and do individualized patient care, right? So when you decide to seek medical advice from, like you said, an influencer or someone that sometimes is being paid to recommend certain things, you cannot say that that is for you, number one, okay? We've seen the downfall of Dr. Oz, who is, I believe he was a neurosurgeon, if I'm not mistaken, or a neurologist. And then, of course, he's doing a social media platform. That is not the issue in itself, but he was often recommending things that had no medical sounding whatsoever. And people bought into it, okay? We can't necessarily look at these platforms and assume that what they are saying is for you. The fact of the matter is that when you're going to the doctor, particularly if you're going to the pediatrician for your child, that pediatrician should be asking about the screen time. They should be asking about how many accounts, how much time, how is this affecting you? Have you had bad episodes, emotionally related to social media? And if the child or the parent says yes, then should be treated like any other medical condition. Either some sort of recommendation should be put in place, a follow-up should be set, that this isn't something saying, oh, well, do better, get rid of the phone, I'll see you in 6 months or a year. This should be considered the new medical condition that the pediatrician should be addressing, because the downfall of this is only worse. So do not put your pediatrician or your doctor's feet to the fire and expect more when it comes to this.
And then for adults, you're saying that adults that are exposed to this level of all of this content, that it does play on to them. Does it become harder? I mean, you're a family physician. Does it become harder for you to do your job if your patients are coming to you? Well, I saw on Instagram, Dr. TikTok told me. Does that make your job harder when you're like, you got to debunk that process, deprogram your patient from that, and then reprogram them in understanding that there are other alternatives, a very real alternative to whatever problem they have?
I think at the end of, that's always been there. Before there was social media, there were the television shows or just the media in general, right? Something comes up and people ask me about it. Before that, I was getting, the latest newspaper, article that was sharing, some new fad. So that's always been there. And that's not necessarily a negative. If I find that to be threatening, that's my problem. That's not the patient's problem. At the end of the day, if I have a good relationship with that patient, I'm going to be able to take what they're bringing to me, consider what applies to them, and then also help them through this information, because they're really coming to me because something has been shared with them and they're trying to apply it to their life. So right. I don't consider that a threat. I consider it's all information coming to the table. The fact of the matter is, if I have adults or kids that seem to have issues with more social media and the information, I recommend leave the smartphone at home. Get a flip phone. Get a flip phone that you're using, whether it's the kid takes it to school. Okay, right. You can get a burner phone and it doesn't cost that much. You won't have some of these issues. It'll get you away from it, but you can still have contact with your kid. Adults are doing it now too. It's become very popular for adults are saying, I still have a smartphone when I need it, but day to day walking out the door, they take a flip phone that doesn't have all that information at their disposal constantly. If this is a real problem for you, that is a solution. Another thing is, just like at the bar or a big party and people put the car keys into the bowl, when people come home at the end of the day, those phones should go into the bowl or the kitchen or into the charging station or however you want to, address this. And most of the time I hear from parents, adults as well as kids that, oh, well, this is my alarm clock. Alarm clocks aren't that expensive. Get a regular alarm clock to wake you up. Get the phone out of the adult bedroom as well as absolutely out of your kid's bedroom. Plugging in the phone should be in another location so that they are not waking up in the middle of the night and you're not waking up in the middle of the night, dealing with social media and, being drawn into this space that actually it's a waste of time. It slows down your day. It makes you less productive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, oh man, Dr. Bridget, you always breaking it down. Look, is there going to be an after chat about this today?
Absolutely. I have some more suggestions about how to manage this for adults as well as for kids, as well as some other resources that I think people find interesting. So I will see you at 5:30.
And folks can definitely log on to Dr. Bridget's IG page. If you don't follow her, make sure you do. Follow her on Instagram and on Twitter and all social media. But she has those after chats, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right on her IG page. Phenomenal discussions about things that we talk about here and some additional information she can provide. And it's just a great way to get your questions answered by our very, very Very, very cool and laid back and just overall just knowledgeable doctor, Dr. Bridget, MD. Doc, thank you so much for joining us again this week. We look forward to reconnecting with you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farajii.
You're welcome. All right, folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let me share with you some good news. Stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show and our final conversation. It's just something that I saw trending that I wanted to share with you, some good news, and it's about Miss Brittney Griner. Of course, Brittney, of course, serves as the center for the Phoenix Mercury WNBA team, and she is back playing basketball, folks. She is back playing basketball, and when she came out to play over the weekend, this was the warm welcome she got back at home. Take a look.
I need some noise for sports fans. Basketball is home. Let's show some love and join us in welcoming BG.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube.
Wow. Big shout out to BG, Brittney Griner. Welcome back. When the Phoenix Mercury actually played the LA Sparks here on Friday night here in Los Angeles at the crypto.com arena. If you went downtown where crypto is, they have this big, like, it's crazy. Crypto's huge arena, but right in downtown LA. But on the side of one of the buildings, they had this huge poster of Brittany Griner. Nike had put this out. All they had was a picture of Brittany Griner holding the basketball, kind of facing downward. And they just said one word, home. It was very, very touching. So Brittany Griner is back, even though the Phoenix Mercury's have lost their first 2 games of the season as they kick off the season. She has been feeling the love both at home in Phoenix and abroad around the country. And we just welcome her back to the hardwood floors and, more importantly, welcome her back home here at the United States. And after undergoing that very, very crazy, just that crazy situation in Russia, it's just good to see that she's coming back to something that she loves, which is back to her fans and to basketball. So welcome home. Welcome back, Brittany Griner. And we have been pulling for you here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. And it's good to see you back on the hardwood floor. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank my dynamic team. I want to thank Joel. I want to thank my team member, my producer, Maddie. I want to thank my engineers for the day, Lise. Thank you. And, of course, our controls room for making today's show possible. Make sure you do your due diligence and show your support. Go to blackstarnetwork.com, where we're looking for your financial support to continue the great work that we're doing here on The Culture and on all the other shows here on the Black Star Network. And while you're there, make sure you download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network on Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, share it with your family and friends. And just let folks know that Black media is here to stay. Also, while you're on social media, make sure you follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can find me at The Real Farajii on Instagram and at Farajii on Twitter. I would love to connect and build with you. And let's continue to have conversations about the culture. All right, folks, stay tuned. Up next is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure y'all check out Dr. Bridget for her after chat at 5:30 p.m. before you jump on to check out Brother Roland and the panel. But as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, exclusively here, only here on the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon and evening. Talk to you soon. Peace.